In the 25-year history of the Toronto Raptors, they have never had an NBA MVP. But with players like Pascal Siakam on such a meteoric rise to success, will we see an MVP in Toronto sooner rather than later? Let's get into it. Welcome to Amateur Sports, everybody. Jacob Carter here talking about the MVP candidacy of Pascal Siakam in the future. Not this season, because this season it's either Giannis or LeBron, but in the future, can Pascal Siakam ever reach the heights of MVP level in the NBA? In the history of the main four Toronto sports teams, every other team has had an MVP in their league, but the Maple Leafs have had a long wait for another one since Ted Kennedy won the award in 1954-55. Yes, not since then have the Maple Leafs had a Hart Trophy winner. The Blue Jays, since their first season in the MLB in 1977, have managed to have two American League MVPs, George Bell in 1987 and Josh Donaldson very recently in 2015. Toronto FC, I'll talk about them as well, in the MLS, had an MVP of the MLS in 2015 as well, Sebastian Giovinco. But the Toronto Raptors have never had an MVP. So, why not? Why is that the case? I think the lack of rotation for NBA MVPs is that it's so based off of one player. It's so easy for one player to dominate an NBA game rather than, a soccer game, a hockey game, or a baseball game. It's much more team oriented. So you can see a lot more rotation in terms of winning the MVP. But for basketball, all the good players are going to be great every year, unless they have, maybe an off year, but that's very rare. They're still going to be at that insane caliber. So it's difficult for Toronto, a small market team, to acquire these sorts of MVP talent. But what about through the draft? What about drafting Pascal Siakam 27th overall in the 2016 NBA entry draft? Pascal Siakam this season has averaged almost 24 points per game, along with 7.5 rebounds and about 3.5 assists per game. The reigning NBA most improved player has taken another big jump this season after averaging 17 points per game last season. In fact, a jump so big, I don't think it's a case whether or not he would be first overall in a redraft in 2016. The 2016 draft is known as, let's say, the Ben Simmons draft because, Ben Simmons went first overall to the 76ers. Since then, the Sixers have been trusting the process with Simmons, but I think the Raptors got the better pick at 27. If we go through the top 10 of the draft, we have Ben Simmons number 1, Brandon Ingram number 2, Jaylen Brown number 3, Dragan Bender at number 4, Chris Dunn 5, Buddy Hield 6, Jamal Murray 7, Marquise Chris, Jakob Poeltl, and Thon Maker make out the top 10 of that draft. No disrespect to anybody else in that draft, but there are no more really notable names talking about being a first overall pick in a redraft. There are no other notable names after the top 10 than Pascal Siakam. It was a bit of a softer year for an NBA draft class, but that doesn't really matter. Pascal Siakam is the best player to come out of that draft. Yes, he is better than Ben Simmons is. Ben Simmons is averaging some nice stats this season, but 16 points per game, about 8 rebounds, about 8 assists. Yeah, that's great and all, but Ben Simmons can't shoot the ball. Pascal Siakam can actually shoot the ball from behind the three-point line. Ben Simmons has made 2 3-pointers in his entire NBA career, and I'm not convinced by seeing a couple of them happen in preseason. When it happens in a real game, I'll believe that he can actually shoot threes. And regardless, those stats are not better than Pascal Siakam's stats this season. Pascal Siakam is averaging almost 24 points per game. Decently efficient and pretty efficient from three-point land as well. Ben Simmons only shoots 2 points. In fact, he has only taken 6 3-pointers over the course of the entire season. So yeah, when you never shoot threes, your field goal percentage is going to be pretty high because you're taking only high percentage shots. Ben Simmons can't even shoot mid-rangers. So absolutely, Pascal Siakam is the best player to come out of the 2016 NBA entry draft. And I'm sure most people who do a redraft of that year would put Pascal Siakam first overall. What a difference it would make to have taken Pascal Siakam to play with the 76ers. That would have made such a difference, I think, to the trajectory of their franchise. Not having to really build your team around Ben Simmons, really forcing all that to happen, having this guy who's just developing into that player. But Again, maybe Pascal Siakam doesn't turn into the player he is if he doesn't get drafted by the Toronto Raptors, because they did so much work with their G League affiliate to really prepare Pascal Siakam to play in the NBA. They gave Pascal Siakam the tools to succeed. They developed him into the player that he is. Would Philly have done that? Probably not, to be honest. So credit to Siakam for working hard. Credit to the Toronto Raptors for putting into work to make him that much better of a player. But can Pascal Siakam ever win an MVP award? I was having this conversation a few days ago with some people. Can Pascal Siakam ever win the MVP? When will the first Toronto Raptor win the NBA MVP award? Well, Pascal Siakam, the start of this season was, trajectory was the top 5 for voting. He had some injury problems. He faded off a little bit, but at the start of the season, he was projected top 5 for MVP voting. So it's clear that he can be at that level, but can he be the absolute best in the NBA? I think that, there's some stars fading off at the moment. Like LeBron James, he's not fading off yet, but inevitably, age will somehow, some way catch up to LeBron, whether it be, in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I don't know. Maybe it could be longer than that, but can he be at an MVP level for all that time? It remains to be seen, but I would say in about 3 years, there's no way. I love LeBron, but I cannot see him still at the MVP level in 3 years. We're really ushering into a new era of NBA basketball without LeBron James. And, maybe James Harden is still kicking about, same with Russell Westbrook, but Russell Westbrook's still a little bit regressing from his complete dominant self at OKC. Pascal Siakam's only 25, 26 years old, so he can still enter his prime and get even better than he is. And I don't think there's a question that Pascal Siakam's going to get even better than he already is. Averaging about 24 points per game again, a huge jump from last year. Why can't he make another jump next year? Why can't he rise into his prime getting 27 plus points per game? I don't see any reason why he can't do that. And already a great defender, Pascal Siakam, but doesn't get a lot of blocks. I think if he can find that part to his game, I think his defensive stats will look even better, because let's compare to Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is considered one of the best defenders in the NBA. Well, Ben Simmons has to guard people a lot smaller than him. Ben Simmons plays point guard. He guards players who are way smaller than him. Of course, Ben Simmons is going to be a dominant defender on those guys. And Ben Simmons is a great defender already, but the fact that he's playing against those guys makes it much more overrated. They had the same defensive rating, Pascal Siakam and Ben Simmons, this season. 105 over 100 possessions. So Pascal Siakam's a great perimeter defender, but can really clean it up on the interior by adding more blocks to his game to really show off the stats a bit further. He's starting to take a lot more threes and still pretty efficient at 36%. I think he can make that even higher, probably touch about 37, 38% from three the way he's shooting, and maybe get that field goal percentage up to the near 50s, high 40s, about 48%. He can definitely average 27 plus points per game. And if he's averaging, 27 points per game, 28 or 29, and he's getting about 8 rebounds a game and maybe 4 assists per game, he could probably be near MVP level. But a problem with Pascal Siakam's MVP candidacy is the fact that there are so many elite players rising in the NBA. I mean, Luka Doncic may get to a point where he's putting up 30 points per game and averaging basically a triple-double efficiently as well. I mean, if Luka Doncic can clean up his three-point percentage, that's easy. That's easy MVP for Luka Doncic at some point in the future. Zion Williamson, also going to be an MVP player at some point in the future. You could also make a case that Trae Young and maybe Jason Tatum could be MVP level in the future. So Siakam has a lot of competition for the award, not to mention that Harden and Giannis are still kicking about, able to win the award. Maybe Anthony Davis can start to take over and get himself in line for award. There's a lot of competition for this sole MVP award. I think that in the next 2 years, Siakam will be at the level to challenge for an MVP. I think, easily can average 27 plus points per game, like I was saying earlier, and be more efficient and get more rebounds and boost his defensive stats. And if that happens, he can certainly be in the discussion. However, I just don't think he will ever be the top number one player in the NBA. I think guys like Luka Doncic, Zion Williamson, Giannis, those kind of players may be able to kind of hog that award. Not really give Siakam the ability to be the one dominant player. If I was a betting man, I'd say Siakam would be a finalist. I think his ceiling is going to be an MVP finalist. I just don't think he's ever going to win. Not to say that it won't ever happen. I think Siakam has the ability to be an MVP. I just think that he'll have to have that one insane year, insanely dominant year, and maybe have other guys not quite up to their 100% that season. That's how he'll capitalize and win that MVP. I think the best bet for the Raptors to win an MVP in the next 5 years is if they manage to get Giannis in free agency. If they can get Giannis in free agency and give him the tools to be even more successful than he has been in Milwaukee, that's going to be the Raptors MVP. That's the most likely scenario. But Siakam still has the ability to win an MVP. I think even more likely is that Siakam's going to win in a finals MVP because the Raptors are still knocking about challenging for that NBA championship, and Siakam's going to be the best player on the court when the Raptors get to that point. Or if they get to that point, it could be this season, it could be next season. They have a phenomenal chance this season to take on an NBA championship back-to-back years. So to round off, Pascal Siakam, the best player out of the 2016 NBA draft, but I think Raptors fans are going to have to wait a little bit of time for that MVP. Who knows when we're ever going to get it. Maybe it could be Siakam. Maybe if Giannis comes to Toronto, that will be the man to give us the MVP trophy. But we're more content having that NBA championship. There's some teams with MVPs, but they don't have that NBA championship that we have. So we'll easily take that before we take an MVP. But thank you for watching. Do you think Pascal Siakam can be an MVP one day in the NBA? Let me know in the comments down below. But that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are still here, please like the video if you like and subscribe to Amateur Sports for more content just like this. Lots of Raptors and NBA content coming on the way as we head into the play-in rounds of the NBA playoffs in the bubble. Thank you so much again for watching. At the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that's okay. We'll see you again next time.